Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Adrienne Keyser and I'm your over 50s fashion diva. And here on my channel, we talk about fashion, of course, but also beauty, lifestyle, travel, and anything trending in social media on any of those topics. So if you want to stay relevant over 50, you've come to the right place. Happy Saturday night, everyone. I hope you all had an amazing week. Tonight's fashion movie night and self-care night at the same time, of course. If you have never been to the fashion movie night, it is a night where we get cozy. I've got on some Amazon pajamas and this old beat up bathrobe. Got my hair up in my little hair thing that I also got from Amazon. And we're going to do some self-care tonight and watch some really interesting information about the legend Cristóbal Balenciaga. Now, a few things I want to say before I get started. If you have never been to my fashion movie night, welcome. I'm so glad that you decided to join. I am going to go through everything that I'm going to do for my self-care routine. Right now, I'm drinking some water with lime. But as you know, on fashion movie night, we do the adult grape juice that the algorithm gods doesn't care for. So I'm going to get all that started here in just a couple of seconds. But I did want to talk a little bit about this fashion movie night. Now, let me just get everything going here. Sorry. I always like to have the movie nights on my big screen, which segues me into what I was about to say. Now, if you tried to join last week's fashion movie night, there was an interruption in the middle of the movie. I was a little bit disappointed because, for one thing, it was a topic that I really wanted to learn more about, which was Christian Dior. And also because it was going to be like doing the Dior and I movie, which I was really excited for you guys to see. But if you didn't see any of my social media, I did talk about it in a live. I can't remember where it was. Let me stop from the beginning. So at the top of the video, I did all of the self-care stuff. And that was really exciting because I actually did I'm trying to get this on my phone as well. So I did needling. I did the skincare technique needling. And if you've never done needling, it's really an amazing skincare technique, perfect for us babes over 50. And it is a technique where you are basically needling your skin to allow products to penetrate them much more effectively. I demonstrated how to do it, and I was all ready to move on to the next step in my skincare routine after the needling, which was steaming. So at that point, I started the movie, which was the sort of documentary part about Christian Dior. And I think maybe 10 minutes into it, I looked up on my screen and I was like, wait a second, why isn't the movie playing? And figured out that I had gotten a copyright warning and they deleted the video. So the algorithm gods, I guess there was something attached to that particular creator's video that flagged my video. So it basically stopped my live. And I had never experienced that before because, I've been doing this fashion movie nights for a while now and they've been really successful. So I was a little taken aback when all of a sudden, like, it stopped in the middle of the movie, and I didn't know what to do. I just panicked. I ended the live and I was like, okay, I'll just do it the next week. But then I thought to myself, that's going to like really read odd as I'm advertising it on my socials, that I'm doing the same movie night after I just did it. So I decided I'm not going to do Dior. I'm going to do Dior later. So you didn't miss anything. If you were here to see the Dior movie, I'm going to do it at a later time. I'm just not going to use that particular creator's video, and maybe just start with the movie and see where we go from there. Or maybe do like find some other documentary that I think might work. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out why that particular video didn't work. I didn't see anything on there that like screamed alarms, like don't use this video. And me personally thought that all videos on YouTube, since they are for the public, and as long as you're not, maybe it was because I was off screen during that part of the movie. And so it looked like maybe I was trying to steal that content. That could be. That could be. But I had actually gone off screen to like get the water from my steamer and, whatever. So it may have read like I was not altering the content enough that the algorithm gods was like, she's stealing the video. So maybe we'll try to use that video again, but at the end of the video. And the other thing is I think you can, it's something about if the video is still playing, you can go in and fix it and resume your live without them taking it down. So I just have to figure it out. So I'll figure it out for the next time. And hopefully it won't happen to us this time. I will try to stay on screen at the beginning of the movie. I think that was a big factor. And yeah, so you didn't miss out on Dior. And yeah, so that's all I wanted to say about last fashion movie night. Now, what I want to say about tonight's fashion movie night is that Balenciaga is a very controversial brand if you are not aware. I'm not going to get into it too in depth because I actually have a video that I created all about the topic. It was during the Balenciaga scandal. And if you aren't aware of the scandal, again, it's all in my video. Now, we will not be covering that era. We're not covering like the latest branding of Balenciaga for two reasons. One, because the current designer, Gemna, if you aren't aware, Google it. I just don't like to talk too much about him on my channel. But anyway, he is very controversial, for lack of a better word. I mean, his background and his history and sort of what he's brought forth to the brand has been scrutinized for a while now. But more importantly, and moreover, well, not more importantly, I shouldn't say that, but moreover, I'm a fashion stylist. I enjoy fashion history, if you weren't aware. And I love to learn everything there is in all aspects of fashion. So I'm making this current statement with that little bit of my history to go behind it. The new designs are total shit. The latest designs that the brand is putting out are complete crap. And I just don't support a brand that has a designer that is that controversial and has bad design. Now, listen, that being said, there are things that I can overlook. Like, for example, here's two really good examples. One, I'm a huge Tom Cruise fan. And even though I know he's a Scientologist, or sorry, I shouldn't say that word. I'm sorry. The algorithm gods don't like that word. Even though he has that particular religion in his life, I'm still a huge, massive fan. Another good example is Woody Allen. And if you don't know the controversy behind Woody Allen, Google it, because I'm not going to bring it up here. I've already said one word that the algorithm gods are probably already upset about. But if you don't know Woody Allen's story, definitely go and check it out. But at the same time, he's an incredible movie director, and I love his work. So, the artist, there's just certain things you battle with, right? But when it comes to fashion, if the fashion is crap, I'm not buying it and I'm not supporting you. I'm not going to support a designer that's putting out the garbage that this designer is putting out for the Balenciaga brand currently. Now, that being said, there is history behind this brand. There is an actual person behind this brand. And if you're here to learn about the man behind the brand that is so well known that everyone is talking about these days, that's trending in a lot of areas, this is the place to do it. We're going to learn all about the man, the myth, the legend, Cristóbal Balenciaga. I'm so excited to get this movie night started. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to take 5 more minutes just because I want to give people time in case some people are joining a little bit late. I also want to go put this up on my other screen. So I'll be right back. Hold on. Oh, and I'm going to go get my adult grape juice. Okay, all right, I'm back. So I'm glad that I went and grabbed that because I forgot I had actually put that bottle of grape juice in the freezer because I just went to the store about an hour ago to go get it. So yeah, I left to go to the store to pick up the adult grape juice. I think tonight's dinner, because for me this is dinner time. I know for a lot of people it may be a little bit late, but I think we're gonna make some fries. I'm gonna put some fries in the air fryer, I think, for dinner tonight, and make a really good sauce. And let's see. The skincare night tonight is going to be a couple of different things because it's our skincare, self-care night. So we're going to do it all. I'm going to use a mud mask tonight. This actually is, my girlfriend bought this for me. And this is by Products. It's called Pure Mud. This is actually a body mask. And as you can see from the girl on the photo, I actually used this as a body mask like over a year ago. It's a hot mess. Trying to, unless you're like sitting outside in a yard with a hose, that stuff, getting it out of your shower, that was a nightmare. So I've been using it as a face mask ever since. I mean, it's all the same stuff. I mean, it's a Dead Sea. It says pure. Oh, it's in French. Okay, no additives, 100%. It's a Dead Sea sensation. And so we're going to use that face mask. Then I'm going to go in with my Gravity Mud, Glam Glow Gravity Mud face mask. I may do my steam before the Glam Glow. I may do my steam before that. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And then I'm also, I have all of my regular tub of skincare that I'm gonna do. You see that Bliss mask? I actually used that. I think either last week or whatever. There's still a little bit of essence down in there that I'm going to use up as well. So it's just gonna be just a good skincare night, just doing different face masks and really enjoying our self-care. Unfortunately, right now I'm out of my long incense sticks. I only have little short incense sticks. So neither here nor there. The other thing I'm going to do is a little bit while that mud mask is drying, I'm going to do a little bit of like manicure touch up. I don't know that I want to do a whole new manicure right now. So actually I really need to. They're bad. They're rough. They need it. So yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. So I was just gonna refresh them with some polish, but no, it needs a whole new manicure. So I'll probably just take off the polish. I probably will pull out my little electric file like I did if you saw my movie net a few weeks ago and just kind of clean those up before I even do anything. And that's probably going to be mostly what I do. I do have a ped egg. Remember these guys? I use this thing all the time. It's the best thing ever. I've probably had it in 1,000 years. I mean, look, it's yellowing. I've had it so long, but it works. It still works. I love it. So I'm gonna do a little foot filing action. And what else? I think that's gonna be it. That's a lot. But I just want to let you guys know what I'm gonna be doing. I may hold up products, as you know, as we go on through the movie. And yeah, I think we're ready to get started. Okay, yep, we're 17 minutes in. Now, I will say that tonight's movies are not as lengthy as the past movie nights, which is another reason why I'm chatting it up a little bit longer than I normally would. Because let me go ahead and start sharing my screen with you guys. If you see the list, you'll see that there really aren't a lot of movies here. We're going to start here with the history of Balenciaga, and then we're going to go into the great master of, no, sorry. Wait, I thought I had these in order. I apologize. I thought I put these in order because next I wanted to do the Balenciaga story why the Spanish refugee stepped down at the height of his career. And then we've got the great master of fashion, and then the disturbing history, and then the Balenciaga you didn't know. So those are going to be, and as you can see, none of these are terribly long videos tonight. So, and I didn't think of anything to sneak in there. We could do this one. This would be fun. I actually wanted to do this one, the Cartiers, and that's also not a terribly long video. So maybe we'll put that one up with the others. And yeah, so we'll put that up there after that. And yes, you saw a little sneak preview of something that I'm really excited to present. And I'm not going to really officially announce it until next week, maybe? Yeah. Yeah, stay tuned for next week. It's going to be a good one. I'm really excited about it. I've been looking forward to it. So, yeah, make sure to follow me on all my socials so that you can, excuse me, so that you will know exactly what next week's fashion movie night is going to be. I'm really excited about it. It's actually something I've already seen, but I'm really excited to bring it to you guys, and it's coming out at a time that's very pertinent. So I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to give it too much away. Okay. Anyway, okay, here we go. The history of Cristobal Balenciaga. Let's get started. Okay. Oh, did I have volume? Is there volume? Is it on? Oh, it's
In
on there. Okay.
1895, Cristóbal Balenciaga was born in a small Spanish fishing village. Unfortunately, his father died when he was very young, so he was mostly raised by his mother, who worked as a seamstress. Always by her side, he quickly learned the trade himself, and by the time that he was 12, he had developed a keen sense of appreciation for the art of design. This was great, but his top priority was still helping his mother make ends meet, so a career in the fashion industry had never really crossed his mind. At least that was the case up until the day that he and his mother received a visit from the Marquesa de Casatorres. The Marquesa de Casatorres was a Spanish aristocrat, and on the merit of a strong reputation, Cristobal's mother was invited to be her personal seamstress. Although they themselves came from humble beginnings, this meant that they were now working with garments worthy of Spanish nobility, and so in many ways, this was the start of his interest in high-end fashion.
Wow.
Better yet, it was actually the Marquesa de Casatorres that offered him the opportunity of a lifetime. As the story goes, she stopped by one day to have some work done, and Cristobal complimented the Parisian tailoring of her outfit. Moved by the compliment and impressed by his attention to detail, she offered to set him up with an apprenticeship in tailoring. Without her help, such a thing may have never been possible, and knowing this, he leapt at the chance. During the apprenticeship, Cristobal's skills improved to the point that he was reputed as a prodigy, and by the time that he turned 24, he had already established enough of a clientele to open his own couture boutique.
Wow.
Just in case you aren't familiar, couture essentially refers to the making of customized, one-of-one garments, often dresses, meaning that this wasn't the type of store where the average person could walk in and pick something off the shelf. Instead, many of his clients were members of the Spanish noble class that he had been introduced to through the Marquesa, and this makes sense because this is the class of people that would typically require custom dresses for formal events such as galas and weddings. At these events, wearing something that no one had ever seen before was the most powerful statement one could make, and because Cristobal specialized in an unprecedented fusion of Japanese and European fashion, his services were in high demand. Things were going great, and over the next few years, his boutique became one of the most popular in the entire country, but sadly, his luck was about to run out.
That makes
In 1931, the Spanish monarchy was abolished, thus forcing a complete redesign of the country's class structure. As it turns out, the noble class's loss of money and power was bad for business, and so by the end of the year, Cristobal had no choice but to declare bankruptcy. While this was certainly a major setback, it was only a temporary one. Not only was he able to get back on his feet, but within the 4 years that followed, he actually expanded his business quite a bit. He opened 2 new locations in Madrid and Barcelona that would be more focused on traditional dressmaking, and unlike his first location, which shared the name Cristóbal Balenciaga, these new locations would be named Isa, as a tribute to his mother whose last name was Isaguirre.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to do a really quick pause for the cause. I'm just going to say right off the bat that this creator is like I would have liked for him to just take a half a beat. Like I would have rather the video be an hour long than him like going so fast. Like I feel like I'm not catching everything. And yeah, I mean, I'm doing a face mask. I don't know if you guys are paying more attention to it than I am, but I'm feeling like this creator is going like at the speed of light to get through this video. I mean, it's not that serious, dude. Slow down. You know what I mean? Anybody else feeling that? Anybody? Oh yeah, it's just me here. But yeah, okay, sorry. I just wanted to say that because I was just like, man, I just wish he would slow down like half a beat for me to catch like really what he's saying. I just feel like he's flying through this. But all right, sorry. Here we go. I'm gonna back it up because I know I was talking through something. I'm gonna back it up just a little bit. I think I was talking right about till there.
Additional dressmaking, and unlike his first location, which shared the name Cristóbal Balenciaga, these new locations would be named Isa, as a tribute to his mother whose last name was Isaguirre. It hadn't been easy, but he had successfully weathered the storm, or so he thought. You see, his business was back and better than ever, but Spain was still in political disarray from the abolishment of the monarchy, and in 1936, the country broke out into a civil war. As a result, Cristobal was forced to shut down all of his boutiques, and for the second time in 5 years, he had lost all of his progress. This very well could have been the end of the line for him, But relentless in his pursuit for success, he decided it was time to take drastic measures. Spain was where he called home, but he had come to the conclusion that it was too unstable for him to run a business there. As daunting as it was, he needed to start over somewhere new, and so he packed his bags and set out for Paris.
Paris. Tierra de la mode.
In 1937, Cristóbal arrived in Paris with the intention of opening a couture house, but this time around he wanted to do things differently. Rather than conducting business under his full name as he had done in the past, he dropped his first name and simply went with Balenciaga. That same August, he presented his first couture collection to the public, and while it was widely praised, his real breakthrough wouldn't come until 2 years later in 1939. The collection that he presented that year was heavily inspired by elements of 17th century Spanish fashion, and the ongoing civil war in Spain provided a layer of cultural relevance that got everyone talking. The collection's Infanta dress would even be depicted in Vogue, courtesy of a sketch by the legendary artist Carl Erickson, and this would help play a role in spreading Balenciaga's influence around the globe. Now, it's a good thing that this happened when it did, because just 1 month after the collection was presented came the start of World War II. War was exactly what he'd moved to France hoping to escape, and at this point I'm sure it felt like he couldn't catch a break, but fortunately for him, he'd have much better luck this time around. Typically during times of war, high-end fashion is the last thing on anyone's mind, but certain pieces like the square coat were so overwhelmingly popular that people even risked their lives traveling to France so they could buy it. By the end of the war in 1945, Balenciaga had never been stronger, but the same cannot be said for many of the other couture houses that were in France at the time. Because of the war, not only had sales gone down, but the strain on international trade had driven the price of materials up. In other words, they weren't making any money, and the future of French fashion looked grim. But then stepped in Robert Ricci, the son of the famous couturier Nina Ricci.
Yeah.
Robert had the great idea of hosting an art exhibit / fashion show that would display the work of French couturiers on 1/3 scale mannequins. The smaller scale meant that they could show off their work without using a ton of material, and if anyone went to the show and saw something that they liked on a mannequin, they could pay the upfront cost of having it made in their size. The first of these shows, which would become known as the Théâtre de la Mode, was held in Paris at the Louvre, and there was a total of 237 mannequins featuring the work of nearly 60 different French designers, including Balenciaga, Hermès, Balmain, and Lanvin. The exhibit ended up being a massive success, and after this initial showing at the Louvre, they decided to bring it on a tour throughout Europe and America. This was obviously great for business, as many of the designers who took part in it were now receiving more orders than they ever had before, but aside from financial gain, the real benefit of the Théâtre de la Mode was that it sparked the public's interest in high-end fashion. Many of these designers were already well known among the rich and famous, but in an age without social media, it was fairly uncommon for the average person to come across their work. That all changed with this exhibit, because anyone could now walk in and see for themselves the designs made by people like Cristóbal Balenciaga. And even if they couldn't afford it, many of them developed a deeper sense of appreciation for fashion as an art form. So in the years...
Okay, another pause for the cause. So I think that's so fascinating because if you remember Jeremy Scott's collection for Moschino, I can't remember if it was like 20, I don't remember what year it was, but he did that whole entire collection. I think it was during the, when we were all stuck inside time, and he decided to create his designs on marionettes. Did you see that collection? It's one of my favorite collections he ever did. And I wonder if he took the inspiration from this. You know what I mean? It's like it's so genius to have done that, especially during wartime when, women were, basically helping out and they didn't have time to be fashion models. They were working in the factories and, basically keeping the home going. What is it? The home fires burning or whatever. Man, that really got real thick on this side. I don't know why, but it's all right. Anyway, so yeah, it was just kind of making me think of that Jeremy Scott collection for Moschino. And it's just such a genius idea. I'm surprised that more designers haven't done that type of an idea throughout the years, but genius. And yeah, That was so cool. I'm going to back it up a little bit. I can't wait to rewatch this because I wasn't watching any of that part. And those little miniatures look so adorable. Okay. We'll back it up just a little bit.
Person to come across their work. That all changed with this exhibit because anyone could now walk in and see for themselves the designs made by people like Cristóbal Balenciaga. And even if they couldn't afford it, many of them developed a deeper sense of appreciation for fashion as an art form. So in the years following the war, in large part thanks to the Théâtre de la Mode, the state of French fashion was stronger than ever before. But Cristóbal knew that there was still work to be done. That's why in 1955, he introduced the Balenciaga tunic. Now, at first, you might be thinking that this is a bit plain and nothing to get too excited about, but what you have to realize is that this silhouette went against everything that other designers were doing at the time. Dresses were getting tighter, cuts were getting sharper, and patterns were getting more gaudy. But with this tunic, Cristóbal was saying that high fashion for women didn't have to be any of that. This piece was a social statement just as much as it was a fashion statement, and it's something that he doubled down on just 2 years later by debuting the now iconic sack dress. Not only did this do away with the traditional slim.
Well, that's so funny because, yeah, if you think about the 1950s, I mean, women were still wearing hoop skirts. You know what I mean? Like hoop skirts were still a thing, bobby socks and hoop skirts. So to come out with that silhouette at that time, yeah, that was probably crazy revolutionary. And then the sack dress. I mean, come on, look at the shape. Look at how stunning. I mean, that is just timeless. You put that on right now, that same exact design, with the gloves and the bag and the hair and a great pair of heels. You put that on right now, you are in vogue in 2024. I mean, look at that. I mean, it's so revolutionary, so ahead of its time, so timeless, so chic. Okay, sorry. Was having a moment there. Had a fashion moment there. Okay, I'm also terrified to like go off camera in the fact that it might in my video. Okay, but I gotta go do it. All right, I'll be right back.
Years later by debuting the now iconic sack dress. Not only did this do away with the traditional slim waist, but it quite literally went in the opposite direction. It looks a bit clunky and perhaps even a bit impractical, but again, this was a statement piece and it got a lot of people's attention. So between the tunic, the sack dress, and other pieces like the baby doll dress, Cristóbal had established himself not only as one of the best designers in France, but also as one of the most innovative. And this earned him praise from some people in very high places. For instance, Christian Dior, who was technically one of his biggest competitors at the time, famously said, "Haute couture is like an orchestra for which only Balenciaga is the conductor. The rest of us are just musicians following the directions he gives us."
I love it.
That should give you a pretty good idea of how strong his influence was during the height of his career, even among the best of the best. But as I'm sure you know, all good things must come to an end.
All right, I'm going to go make my fries.
In 1968, after working in the fashion industry for nearly 30 years, Cristóbal Balenciaga announced that he would be retiring. And upon making this announcement, he made it clear that the House of Balenciaga would be closed forever. So this is something I want to dive a little bit deeper into because when the news broke, people were understandably disappointed and they were also a bit confused as to why he wouldn't pass the business on to one of his many prodigies, including Oscar de la Renta and Hubert de Givenchy. Well, to understand this decision, I think it's important to mention that Cristóbal Balenciaga was an intensely private person. He rarely,
But just think about that. Would those two legendary designers have been who they were had he done that? If Cristóbal had announced one of them as their successor, would those two designers, I mean, I'm pretty sure that they would have been legendary designers either way, but it would have taken them a lot longer to create their own house, their own labels, if they were working for Balenciaga, if they were working for that house. So that's really interesting. That's really interesting. And I have a feeling that that's going to come up again and again and again throughout tonight's movies, because that's pretty epic to do something like that, to actually be at the height of your success and just be like, okay, I'm done, and end your house. I mean, that's probably unheard of. Um, but I'm sure it's because he didn't think that anybody else could create the way he created, even though he had these two other designers that were sort of in the wings waiting to do so. That's really interesting. That's really, really interesting. This is why I love Fashion Movie Night. I love it. I love it. I learned so much about history. Now, I did study fashion history, but not like in college or anything. I basically did it on my own, and I mostly learned things like about like patterns and theories and color theories and shoemaking, hat making, things like that. Never really about the history of these designers, where they came from, what their background is. So this is really exciting for me. So that's just a little bit that I didn't know. And I think that I probably knew that about Balenciaga, but this is really good. So we're learning stuff. I love that. I love learning new things. All right, back it up just a touch, because that's really surprising. I'm just really surprised that that went down like that. But I guess we're gonna find out really why. So let's
Also a
go.
bit confused as to why he wouldn't pass the business on to one of his many prodigies, including Oscar de la Renta and Hubert de Givenchy. Well, to understand this decision, I think it's important to mention that Cristóbal Balenciaga was an intensely private person. He rarely, if ever, revealed details about his personal life. He never talked to the press. He didn't make appearances at his own shows. And during his lifetime, he only gave 2 interviews, both of which were with the French magazine Paris Match, and both of which were conducted after his retirement.
Okay, sorry. I know I'm pausing a lot tonight, but that's probably why we don't have some really long, drawn out movie about him tonight. You know what I mean? We're only getting like these little snippet movies because he was so incredibly private that there aren't these long, like our good friend, our good creator, Understitch. That she's done some really intensive background on different designers, and I think that she probably would have done one on Balenciaga if there were one available to do. You know what I'm saying? So that's really interesting. That's probably why, yeah, we're not finding a lot of movies and background about him. So this is really good because you probably don't know these things. I didn't know these things because there's just not not a lot out there about him. I'm just thinking about French fries. Okay, let's keep going. I'm gonna start the fries, but I'm so intrigued. I don't want to miss anything.
In other words, he had no interest whatsoever in the spotlight and was really just using the House of Balenciaga to share his designs with the world. So when he decided that he was done designing, there was really no need for the house to continue. And at the end of the day, he knew that his legacy would carry on even if his name did not. As we've discussed, he'd already left his imprint on the fashion industry, and he'd helped shape the careers of countless other designers. In fact, after retiring, Cristóbal suggested to many of his clients that they take their business to his apprentice Hubert de Givenchy. So in a way, the end of Balenciaga played a major role in jumpstarting Givenchy. Now, at this point, you may be wondering, if Cristóbal really did shut down Balenciaga, how is it still around today? And trust me, I will be getting to that very shortly, but for now, just know that as of 1968, Balenciaga was no more. And in 1972, just 4 years later, Cristóbal Balenciaga passed away at the age of 77. Upon his death, the fashion magazine Women's Wear Daily ran the headline, "The King is Dead," and that truly was the sentiment. Fashion had lost one of its giants, and it left many people in the industry feeling lost. Just to put this into perspective, Coco Chanel once described Balenciaga as the only true couturier left, and if you subscribe to that belief, the implication would be that the art of couture design died with him. Now, clearly, this is a sweeping statement, and Cristóbal would not be the last great couturier, but the point here is that this truly was the end of an era. So with the House of Balenciaga closed, and the man behind it having passed away, one might assume that this would be the end of the story. But as we know now, it most certainly is not. Now, this is a bit tricky to explain because the details aren't exactly clear, but I will do my best using the information we have available. So first off, even though Cristóbal closed his business in 1968, he still owned the rights to Balenciaga up until his death in 1972. Typically, when you die, your assets will go to your next of kin, but the thing here is that he wasn't married and he had no children. He did, however, have siblings, and while they had also passed away, he did happen to have a living nephew. From what I've read, it was this nephew of his that acquired the rights to Balenciaga, and having no knowledge of the industry himself, he decided to sell the rights, and so they were subsequently acquired by a German chemical manufacturer known as Hoechst. Now, at first, that might sound crazy, and you're probably wondering what a German chemical manufacturer would want to do with a defunct fashion house, but as it turns out, the answer is pretty simple. Although it wasn't his main line of business, Cristóbal actually introduced a Balenciaga perfume line back in 1947, and over the years, it had become quite popular. As a chemical manufacturer, one of Hoechst's main focuses was perfume, and they wanted to use the Balenciaga name to launch a new perfume line. After purchasing the rights, that's exactly what they did, and while I do acknowledge that Balenciaga probably wouldn't be around today if they hadn't, I can't help but wonder if this is what Cristóbal would have wanted. In a sense, this did keep the Balenciaga name alive, but it technically wasn't even being kept alive in the fashion industry. That was about to change, however, because in 1986, the rights to Balenciaga were sold again, this time to Jacques Bogart. Jacques Bogart was also a perfume company, but they understood the power that the name Balenciaga held in the fashion industry and decided to bring in designer Michel Goma to create Balenciaga's first ever ready-to-wear collection. Again, we can't know for certain if this is what Cristóbal would have wanted, but the fact remains that this was a pivotal moment in the brand's history. Just to clarify, ready-to-wear is, for all intents and purposes, the opposite of couture, because rather than pieces being customized for individual clients, they come in a range of standard sizes and are made available to the general public. In other words, this marked the beginning of when you could walk into a Balenciaga store and buy something off of the shelf. For a brand that had made its name as a couture house, this was a drastic change to say the least, but the decision had been made, and the only question left was whether or not it would pay off.
Nicolas. Those were the
From
years.
the very beginning, Michel Goma struggled to find his footing as the creative director of Balenciaga, and to be fair, I don't think it was entirely his fault. He was being asked to take a couture house that hadn't been active for 20 years and turn it into a ready-to-wear brand, which I can assure you is no easy task. Goma presented his first collection in October of 1987, and from there it was pretty much downhill. Make no mistake, he was a skillful designer in his own right, but he was widely criticized for abandoning Balenciaga's identity as a high-end brand. And
I graduated high school in 1987, so just a little history there. But yeah, that was the years. Those were the years, the Balenciaga years. All right, here we go.
And from there, it was pretty much downhill. Make no mistake, he was a skillful designer in his own right, but he was widely criticized for abandoning Balenciaga's identity as a high-end brand and failing to build upon Cristobal's design language.
Yeah, you gotta do
that said, Goma's tenure at Balenciaga would only last for 5 years, and in 1992, he was replaced by Josephus Timister. Timister was a young but highly accomplished designer who had worked under Karl Lagerfeld at Chanel, and the hope was that he would be able to turn things around at Balenciaga. In a sense, he was successful, and he is nowadays credited with modernizing the brand as well as returning it to high-end status, but unfortunately, he seems to have taken things a bit too far. In 1997, he presented a runway show accompanied by a live electronic band, and it was so aggressively loud that audience members started walking out. Beyond the fact that the entire show was ruined, this served as a wake-up call to the board of Balenciaga that the brand was becoming a bit too modern, and Timister was subsequently fired. Now, because this firing was so abrupt, they basically had to scramble to find a replacement, and in their search, they found a young Balenciaga employee named Nicolas Jesquier. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with Nicolas' work because later in his career, he would become the creative director of women's wear at Louis Vuitton, but back then, he was just a 26-year-old designer trying to make a name for himself.
Wow.
At the time he was promoted, he'd been working at Balenciaga for about 5 years already, and while he had no experience running a fashion house, they decided to give him a shot. Looking back now, this was the right decision, but Nicolas himself remembers that in the beginning, the cards were stacked against him. He only had 4 months to design his first collection, he wasn't allowed to pick the show's venue, he couldn't get the models he wanted, he had no say in designing the runway, and didn't even have a say in the carpet that the models walked on. So to put it simply, he had no choice but to let the collection speak for itself, and that's exactly what he did. Unlike Michel Goma, who was known for his use of a vibrant color palette, Jesquier's collection was all black. And unlike
Well,
Timister, whose modern approach neglected the brand's history, Jesker's collection was directly inspired by the work of Cristobal Balenciaga himself. Needless to say, it was an instant hit. The collection got everyone in the industry.
okay, sorry. Another little piece of tidbit fashion trivia for you if you did not know. One of the most difficult things to do is create an all black collection. Many designers have done it successfully over the years, but it's not easy. I mean, you're basically leaving yourself open for people to judge the intricacies of the design as opposed to what it looks like. Because otherwise, it's just a black piece of fabric. But what did you do with it? You know what I mean? It's one of the most difficult things to do because it really makes you hone in on the details of the garment and whether it's successfully created. So, yeah, the fact that he would do that, that's bold as your first collection at a legendary house at a house with a legendary name, and you're just a 26-year-old punk kid. That's bold. That's bold, which is probably why he is who he is today. Amazing. I'm just blown away by that. And yeah, there have been a lot of designers, don't get me wrong, that have created very successful all black collections throughout time. But for a punk kid to do that first time out the gate at a new house, yeah, that takes some balls, baby.
Talking, and pretty soon they all came
Oh, let
knocking.
me back it up just a second.
Needless to say, it was an instant hit. The collection got everyone in the industry talking, and pretty soon they all came knocking at Nicola's door. Within a year of his debut, he was reportedly contacted by Gucci, LVMH, Prada, and even received offers to help launch his own label.
Wow.
Nevertheless, he remained steadfast in his commitment to Balenciaga, and over the next few years, he would establish himself as one of the most promising designers in the industry. Under his stewardship, Balenciaga soon found itself in the same conversation as many of the other major fashion houses, and in 2001, it was actually acquired by Kering, the same luxury group that owns Gucci and Saint Laurent. Throughout his time at Balenciaga, Nicola continued building upon the legacy of Cristobal, but at the same time, he was building his own. Among his numerous critically acclaimed collections, he introduced a number of classic pieces like the Gladiator boots, and of course, the City Bag. Nowadays, the City Bag, also commonly referred to as the motorcycle bag or the lariat bag, is without a doubt one of the most iconic things that Balenciaga has ever done. But funny enough, that almost didn't happen. You see, the board of Balenciaga was pushing Nicola to make a handbag that could compete with the ones being made by other brands, and when he showed them the City Bag, they were quick to shut it down. He'd had a few samples made, but it wasn't what they were looking for, and so they encouraged him to try something else. That very well could have been the end of it, but somehow a few of the samples wound up backstage at one of his shows, and a group of models, including Kate Moss, happened to see them. They told Nicola that they loved the bag, and not thinking much of it, he produced 25 more samples to give to them as gifts. Again, this very well could have been the end of it, but the models were soon carrying the bags around wherever they went, and once they started popping up in paparazzi photos, people wanted to know where they could get one. The sudden demand was all it took for the board to change their minds, and they agreed to let Nicola start selling them in stores. So like I said earlier, the City Bag would go on to become one of the most successful products that Balenciaga has ever made, and this further solidified their trust in Nicola as the brand's creative director. All things considered, we can say for certain that Balenciaga would not be where it is today without him, but in pursuit of new opportunities and challenges, he did end up leaving in 2012 to work at Louis Vuitton. Had he decided to stay, I'm sure that Balenciaga would have continued moving in a positive direction.
Right.
But as we're about to find out, his departure made way for a new, equally important chapter in the brand's history.
Okay. Now, as I said before, I don't particularly like to talk about the current designer. And I'm not sure, there may be another designer in between, but if they cover it, they cover it. I personally don't like talking about the way the brand is currently, but if other creators are talking about it, of course I have to include it because it's part of their their creation. And I don't want to butcher somebody else's content. You know what I mean? They took the time and effort to create it. So I don't want to, but although I am butchering it, but interrupting 1,000 times in the middle of it. But I just wanted to make mention that I said at the top of the video that I personally don't like to talk about this particular designer, but they may just go ahead and bring it up in these videos. If you have ever watched any of my fashion movie nights, as you know, I don't watch the movies ahead of time. I like to do reaction, just like we're doing tonight. Like I call these reaction videos because I am reacting to it just like you would be. And we're just like hanging out at home where we can like rewind the movie and comment on it throughout. You know what I'm saying? So that's just what I wanted to say about that. So if they cover what is going on currently at the house, it is what it is. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, just as I said it, exactly. They're going to cover it.
With Nicola gone, Alexandra Wang stepped in as the new creative director of Balenciaga. Wang had made a name for himself with his...
So that's what I thought. I knew that there was another designer in between Nicola and Demna. And it was Alexander Wang, who is, if you don't know, another incredible designer. And I had thought that there was another designer in between. So yeah, Alexander Wang, of course. That makes so much sense. Okay, sorry. So yeah, they're going to talk about Demna. So now you'll get to know. You don't have to Google it. It's going to be in this creator's video.
But as we're about to find out, his departure made way for a new, equally important chapter in the brand's history. With Nicola gone, Alexandra Wang stepped in as the new creative director of Balenciaga. Wang had made a name for himself with his eponymous label, and while he was still quite young, his dark yet modern aesthetic promised to make him a worthy successor. I think it's fair to say that he was off to a strong start, but for reasons that still aren't clear, his time there would quickly come to a close. In July of 2015, after Wang had presented just 6 collections, Balenciaga announced that they had mutually agreed to part ways with him. As to why this happened, all we can really do is speculate, but Wang has since suggested that he wanted to devote more time and attention to his own
brand.
Whatever the case may be, what we do know for certain is that Balenciaga was once again left looking for a new creative director, and this is where things start to get interesting. In 2015, Balenciaga appointed Demna Gvasalia as their new creative director. A bit of background here, Demna was born in the European country Georgia back in 1981, but he fled to Germany at a young age to escape civil war, something that Cristóbal Balenciaga had done himself back in 1936. When it was safe to do so, he returned to Georgia, and when he was old enough, he enrolled in the economics program at Tbilisi University. He had no real interest in economics, and deep down he knew that he was more interested in fashion, but his parents convinced him that it wasn't a reliable career path. He reluctantly agreed, and after 4 years of studying economics, he moved back to Germany in hopes of landing a job as a banker. But upon arriving there, he had a change in heart. He'd known all along that this wasn't what he truly wanted, and in a leap of faith, he enrolled in the Antwerp Academy of Fine Arts to study fashion design. While he was certainly taking a risk, it didn't take long for him to realize that he was in the right place. Demna had a natural affinity for designing, and by the time that he graduated in 2006, he was working closely with Walter van Beirendonck, who was famously a member of the Antwerp Six and the head of the Academy's fashion department. This helped him make a name for himself, and by 2009, he had developed enough of a reputation that he was invited to design women's wear collections at Margiela. It goes without saying that this was a massive opportunity, and you have to remember that this was still very early on in his career. He was basically fresh out of school, and in an interview with ID magazine, he suggests that he was learning while on the job, and basically treated his time there as a master's program. He also mentions that while he never had the chance to meet or work with Martin Margiela himself, the Margiela archives played a major role in making him the designer that he is today. In 2013, he left Margiela to become a women's wear designer at Louis Vuitton, and in this role he worked alongside both Marc Jacobs and Nicola Jesquier. Just in case you already forgot, I'll remind you that this is right when Nicola first left Balenciaga to join Louis Vuitton, so he was new to the fashion house as well. Clearly, this was great for Demna, but in search of a bit more creative freedom, he began considering the possibility of launching his own label. He had always been heavily inspired by streetwear, and this is something that he really hadn't been able to express in his work while designing women's wear at places like Margiela and Louis Vuitton. That said, he joined forces with his brother Garam, as well as a few of his friends from the Antwerp Academy, and in 2014, they officially launched Vêtements. With Vêtements, which is literally the French word for clothing, Demna set out to create a high-end interpretation of the streetwear aesthetic. In comparison to some of his later work, the brand's first collection was quite reserved, but you can definitely see what he was going for with oversized tops, tightly tailored pants, and extended sleeves. It's less exaggerated here, but this would become one of Vêtements' signature looks in the years to come. Even over the course of the next few collections, we saw him getting a bit more experimental, and before long, the brand was drawing some eyes. Not only was it a topic of conversation for industry insiders, but between his reimagining of several streetwear tropes and pop culture references like the ones made to Star Wars and the Titanic, Vêtements was beginning to make its way into mainstream media. In light of his success, Demna officially left Louis Vuitton in 2015, and in that same year, his work at Vêtements earned him a spot as a finalist for the LVMH Prize for Young Fashion Designers. This is an annual prize given out by LVMH, and the winner receives 1 year of mentorship from the company as well as a cash prize to help their brand grow. Just to give you an idea of how competitive it is, the panel of judges selecting the winner that year included Karl Lagerfeld, J.W. Anderson, Nicola Jeskier, Marc Jacobs, Umberto Leon, Carol Lim, Phoebe Philo, Raf Simons, Riccardo Tisci, and a handful of LVMH executives. As if that's not daunting enough, some of the biggest names among the other finalists were Craig Green, Simon Port-Jacquemus, and Virgil Abloh. Marcus Almeida ended up winning the prize.
Wow. That was just a name drop, name drop, name drop. Did you hear all those name drops? Wow. Okay, first of all, I wanted to pause again because I did want to say that although I have my issues with Demna, I do know that he's talented. And it was not right out the gate that this whole thing kind of went to shit, which I'm sure that this creator is going to talk about. But I just wanted to make mention that even though I am really disappointed and disgusted with him at the moment, I am aware that he is talented. I mean, listen at the names of the judges that he was up against, as well as the other designers he was up against. I mean, Virgil Abloh, for one. I mean, that's pretty massive. I mean, yeah, I'm not really happy with him at the moment, but listen, I don't even know that he can turn it around for me in my mind. I don't know that you can come back from that. I think that the brand can come back from the scandal. I just don't think that he can come back from the scandal. But what do I know? I'm just saying, I think that he's, yeah, I just wanted to say he is very, 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 very talented. I'm just sad that it went the way that it's going. And I won't be returning to even covering that brand until they get a new designer. But all right, let's keep going because I'm sure he's going to cover this scandal. Especially because there's like 12 minutes left, and there's not much more to talk about except that.
Executives. As if that's not daunting enough, some of the biggest names among the other finalists were Craig Green, Simon Port-Jacquemus, and Virgil Abloh. Marcus Almeida ended up winning the prize, but this was still a major turning point for Demna because it further solidified him as a name to watch for in the industry. Right. As a matter of fact, we now know that he was already being watched quite closely, because in 2015, the same year that he left Louis Vuitton and was selected as a finalist for the LVMH prize, he was invited to be the new creative director of Balenciaga. After Alexander Wang's exit, they were looking for a new, young, ambitious designer that could come in and provide fresh ideas for the ready-to-wear line. With his work at Vêtements, Demna had already proven himself to be just that, and while he was definitely excited about the opportunity, he did have his concerns. In an interview with the magazine 032C, Demna says that he wasn't sure about balancing his own label with Balenciaga. And after all, that is supposedly what forced Alexander Wang to walk away.
Right.
Nevertheless, he decided to give it a chance rather than to live in regret, and promised himself that he would separate his responsibilities by treating the two brands as separate entities. Balenciaga would be his medium for luxury design, while with Vetements, he would continue exploring the boundaries between luxury and streetwear. As we'll see in just a bit, there would of course be overlap between the two, but this really was a turning point for him. The first few Vetements collections had been much closer to traditional high-end fashion, but now that he had Balenciaga, he could afford to take more risks with Vetements. This is something that he accomplished by matching luxury-style silhouettes with streetwear-style graphics, as can be seen with the metal logo hoodie, as well as the May the Bridges I Burn Light the Way hoodie. These are two of the most popular Vetements pieces ever made, and all he really did was put these logos on oversized hoodies with extended sleeves, which is a silhouette he'd explored in his earlier collections without the use of logos. It was simple but effective, and this quickly became a popular look that other brands hurried to replicate. Taking things a step further in his exploration of the boundaries between luxury fashion and streetwear, Demna also secured a handful of downstream collaborations for Vetements. I've talked about this in other videos, but a downstream collaboration is when a high-end brand works with a low-end brand, either to make a statement or to help market themselves to the other brand's audience. And that's what he had in mind when he collaborated with the shipping company DHL. Yes, it was a bit random, but the point he was trying to make is that people will wear just about any logo if you tell them that it's high-end. And to be fair, he was right, because this was and is still one of the most highly coveted pieces that Vetements has made. So that was clearly Demna's way of making a statement, and this is something that he would do at Balenciaga as well. For Balenciaga's Autumn-Winter 2017 collection, he quite literally ripped the campaign logo from presidential candidate Bernie Sanders and made it his own. Just to be clear, this collection came out after the election had already ended, so it's not like Demna or Balenciaga were endorsing Sanders, but because of how controversial the 2016 election had been, he knew how it would be received. Much like he had done with DHL, he used the Bernie Sanders logo to make a statement. People had been seeing it everywhere for the past year or so, and it had now made its way onto the runway. I totally understand if some of you don't like when Demna does stuff like this, with the most common criticism being that it's unoriginal, but my hope is that you can take a step back and appreciate what he's trying to accomplish here.
Yeah.
And besides, I would argue that Demna is one of the most original designers in the industry today. In November of 2016, he debuted the Balenciaga Speed Trainers. I know that some of you are already rolling your eyes because you're sick of seeing this shoe, but Demna really was the first one to popularize it. It's a sleek and simple model that casually flexes the Balenciaga logo, and seemingly overnight, it became the most popular shoe on the market. Despite bearing a retail price of almost $800, they were soon flying off the shelves and could be seen on just about every major celebrity. Demna followed this up by collaborating with Reebok to give Vetements its own sock shoe, and by the time that this happened, other major brands were making their own as well. Also, it should come as no surprise that this is one of the most heavily faked shoes in recent memory. It's fairly simple for manufacturers to make, and there is a huge profit to be made. So if you're ever in the market for a pair, just be careful and make sure that you do your research. All in all, the sock shoe craze completely took over in 2017, and Balenciaga was at the forefront of it. With the Speed Trainers, Demna had answered Balenciaga's call to make something that would appeal to the masses, but right when it seemed like things couldn't be going better, he revealed that he had another trick up his sleeve. In 2017, the same year that the Speed Trainers exploded in popularity, Demna debuted the Balenciaga Triple S. In hindsight, this really was a brilliant move. While the success of the Speed Trainers had been great for business, he knew that it would only be so long before the market became oversaturated with them, and decided to provide an alternative. The Speed Trainer had been a sleek, minimalist shoe, but the Triple S was about as loud and clunky as you could get. The name Triple S is actually short for triple sole because the shoe quite literally stacks the molds of 3 different soles on top of each other. Now, if you ask me, releasing the shoe could have easily backfired because it was the exact opposite of what everybody wanted at the time. But since its debut, the success of the Triple S nearly parallels that of the Speed Trainer. This kicked off the so-called dad shoe trend, and other fashion houses were soon releasing dad shoes of their own. The Triple S's and the Speed Trainers are just 2 examples of the success that Demna has had at Balenciaga, but hopefully you get the point that he is everything that the fashion house wanted and needed as a creative director. He redeveloped the ready-to-wear line, he incorporated elements of streetwear to appeal to new customers, and with hit pieces like the shoes we just talked about, sales were through the roof. Things were going great to say the least, but refusing to settle, Demna prepared to shock the fashion world once again. In 2019, he announced that he would be leaving his own brand Vetements. At first, people weren't quite sure why, because he seemed to have been balancing things pretty well, so this was our first hint that he was gearing up for something big. And just a few months after this announcement, we found out what that thing was. Demna was going to bring couture back to Balenciaga. Despite its beginnings as a couture house, Balenciaga had not released any couture collections since Cristobal's retirement back in 1968. In other words, Demna's decision to bring it back promised to be a massive undertaking, and it was met with mixed emotions. While some were happy to see the brand returning to its roots, others questioned if Demna, a designer that specializes in the streetwear aesthetic, would be able to pull it off. People loved his work as a ready-to-wear designer, but would it translate
Hugely
to couture?
successful
Well, in
collection.
July of 2021, we got our answer. First off, let me say that this entire collection was classic Demna. Oversized proportions, extended cuts, a fair share of denim, and of course a handful of
was
eye-grabbing
gorgeous.
accessories. Now, at the same time,
At
I
the
also
time,
believe
it
that this
was
collection has
what
paid more
everyone
homage
wanted.
to Cristobal than any other collection that the brand has put out since his retirement. Many of the silhouettes in this collection seemed like updated versions of Cristobal's most iconic silhouettes. The color palette was nearly all black, and the show itself was even held at Cristobal's original showroom in Paris.
Wow.
A few other interesting things to note: Demna decided not to play any music at the show, so the models all walked the runway in silence. The collection
remember
featured
this
couture for
collection so
men,
well.
not just women, which is something that even Cristobal had never done at Balenciaga. And then finally, there were a few familiar faces in the audience, including Kanye West, James Harden, and Lil Baby, just to name a few. So
Kim
when you
walked the
take
runway.
everything into account, I really do believe that this is the most important Balenciaga collection in recent memory. And it's one of my personal favorites.
It was mine
Not
too.
only does it speak volumes about the brand's past, but it also speaks volumes about the brand's future. And I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here because it did come out just a few months ago, but I think that Demna has really positioned Balenciaga to reestablish itself as one of the world's premier couture houses. Don't get me wrong, I think that ready-to-wear will remain the center of attention, but for those who know and appreciate the history of Balenciaga, the reintroduction of couture will be very interesting to watch. Now, before we finish up, there is one last thing I want to talk about, and that is Kanye West's recent fascination with Balenciaga. I say recent fascination, but to be fair, Kanye and Demna have actually been close since 2015. Kanye had been impressed with his work at Vetements and asked him to help with the launch of his own label, Yeezy. The two of them remained close, but we didn't hear much about them working together again until recently, as Kanye prepared for the release of his album Donda. As I'm sure many of you have seen, Kanye famously wore a spiked jacket from Demna's Fall/Winter 2020 collection for Balenciaga while presenting Donda at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. In addition to this, Demna actually designed the merch line for Donda, which you can see here. Obviously, having one of the most popular designers in the world make your merch is a great business move, but I can assure you that this was not just some cross-promotional stunt. Donda has been out for about 2 months now, and Kanye is still wearing Balenciaga head to toe, other than the masks. I mean, seriously, it appears that he's even swapped out Yeezys, his own shoe, in favor of Balenciaga. Like just recently, he was seen spotted wearing these Balenciaga Crocs. Now, before you all say it, I'm already working on a video about Kanye right now, so I will be talking about this more there, but I just wanted to point out that Kanye appears to be entering a new stage in his style evolution, and Demna's Balenciaga has been a major part of it so far. I'm very interested in seeing where this goes, and my hope is that we'll see the two of them continue working together in the future. So that just about wraps up everything I wanted to touch on for the history of Balenciaga. This is without a doubt one of my favorite brands, and I really do believe it has one of the most interesting histories out of any brand I've covered so far. It started out with a young boy who was lucky enough to earn himself an apprenticeship. He leveraged that apprenticeship into a career and opened up his own couture house in Spain, but was forced to close his business not once, but twice. Refusing to give up, he moved to France, and there he quickly became known as one of the country's best designers. Upon retiring, he intended for the couture house to remain closed, but in 1986, nearly 14 years after his death, Balenciaga was brought back as a ready-to-wear line. From there, it struggled to find success in the same industry it had once dominated, and it wasn't until the arrival of Nicolas Ghesquière that things really turned around. Without him, it is hard to say where Balenciaga would be today, and in many ways, he set the stage for Demna, who would reinvent the brand while taking it to new heights. With the recent return of couture, the future of the fashion house has never been more intriguing, and as long as Demna is in charge, I'd say that they're in very good hands. As we've seen in the past, he is always thinking of new ways to surprise us, with the most recent example being a collaboration with The Simpsons. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he has planned next. Anyways, thank you all for watching Threaducation. If you liked this video and want to see more, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and other than that, I will see you next time.
All right. That was really good. I think that he did an amazing job. Would I have liked for him to speak about, I don't know, a half a second slower? That would have been nice. But it's okay. Now, we're going to go into the second movie. As you can see, like I just watched a minute or two of it. Also 2 years ago. So they did not cover this particular creator, did not cover the scandal. And it was probably because it was after he created this particular video. Again, I'm not going to bring it up here. It, like I said, I did a whole separate video about it. If you want to know more about it, definitely go check that out. I covered it pretty good and gave my opinion about it. So there you go about that. But let's go ahead and move on into why this Spanish refugee stepped down at the height of his career. Now, I don't know if this is going to give us any more information than the other creator, but I would be interested to know. You know what I mean? I think that that is a really, it's just really interesting. Like, what was the real reason? You guys may have seen it while I was making my French fries, but yeah, that's really fascinating. So I'm gonna start from the beginning, y'all. Okay, so the Balenciaga story, why the Spanish refugee stepped down at the height of his career. Here we go. Oh, I feel like I can still go back further. Okay, here we go.
This Spanish refugee stepped down at the height of his success and told everyone that this would be the end of Balenciaga. But unfortunately for him, nobody listened. Cristóbal Balenciaga e Zinguare was born on January 21, 1895, in Gueteria, a small village in Spain's Basque region. His mother, Martina Ezeguare, was a dressmaker, while his father worked as a fisherman. As his father passed away when he was still very young, little Cristóbal spent many hours by his mother's side, while she created beautiful clothes. From very early on, he cultivated the dream of one day becoming a courtier. But seeing that his mom was working hard to make ends meet, it also seemed clear that this wouldn't be the most lucrative job. This all changed when the Spanish aristocrat, the Marquesa de Casatorres, invited Cristóbal's mother to be her personal seamstress. The most prominent woman in town was now his mom's patron and client, and impressed by Cristóbal's attention to detail, the rich lady even offered him the opportunity of a lifetime. She sent him to Madrid for formal training in tailoring, and she proudly wore the ornaments he created. Cristóbal's skills improved drastically, and many began viewing him as a sort of prodigy. In his early 20s, he opened his own couture boutique in the fashionable seaside resort of San Sebastian. His designs were worn by the Spanish royal family and members of the aristocracy. And Cristóbal soon opened more branches in Madrid and Barcelona. People adored his exclusive creations, but his good fortune was about to come to an end. The Spanish Civil War forced the closure of his boutiques, and to escape the war, Cristóbal decided to move to the fashion capital of the world, Paris. Would he still be loved there too?
Okay, I just want to say that this creator's pacing is so much better. I felt like the other creator was like speeding through that video. This just seems like a much easier pace. And he did all that in 2 minutes also. I mean, I don't understand why he needed to go that fast. It almost seems like he was really favoring getting to the whole Demna era, because it, like he said towards the end, it was one of his favorite design, one of his favorite brands, one of his favorite houses. So it just makes me wonder, like, was he really more interested in getting all the information about Demna out and just was like rushing through the actual history of the man? This just feels like a lot easier pace. I feel like I learned a lot more in those 2 minutes than I did in the first 10 of that video, of the other video. But, to each his own. Each creator does things differently, and you've got to respect what they create. So just wanted to throw my 2 cents in there. But leave a comment and let me know if you guys are feeling the same, if this pace is feeling a lot more digestible than the last one. It could be the wine.
Cristóbal truly loved his home country, Spain, but he had come to the unfortunate conclusion that it was just too unstable to run a business there. He needed to start over somewhere new, so he gathered all his things and moved to Paris. In 1937, he opened his atelier on Avenue George V. It was located on the 3rd floor of Palazzo Borghese. That same year, he staged his first runway show, in which he displayed a collection that was heavily influenced by the Spanish Renaissance. His maniac attention to detail and his refined taste soon conquered the European aristocracy. And by 1939, Balenciaga was being praised in the French press as a revolutionizing force in fashion. The future was looking great, but then World War II broke out, and it once again seemed like his luck had come to an end. During times of war, luxurious goods tend to be seen as unnecessary. And having already fled his home country to avoid war, it seemed like he would have to do it all over again. But fortunately for him, this time around, things wouldn't turn out so bad. In fact, certain pieces like his square coat were so beloved that customers even risked their lives traveling to France just to get their hands on them. By the time the war ended in 1945, Balenciaga had become a household name, and in the post-war years, he set out to differentiate himself even more. At a time when femininity was manifested through nipped-in waists and prominent hips, Balenciaga unleashed his genius by going in a different direction entirely. He wanted to set the body free. His designs became more streamlined and linear, and everything he created was in stark contrast to the popular, curvy, hourglass shape that Christian Dior promoted with his new look. He churned out statement piece after statement piece, and from the sack dress to the balloon jacket, with each creation, he got a lot of attention. With these innovative designs, Balenciaga achieved what is considered to be the most important contribution to the world of fashion: a new silhouette for women. But would this be enough? Throughout
Okay, sorry. I just want to make one quick comment here about this creator. Now, I am a creator that also creates AI generated content. And it's so funny because when you like, For example, I use InVideo AI to create a lot of my AI content, right? Now, if you have seen any of my AI content, it's not as easy as people think. People think, oh, you just plug it into InVideo AI and it creates the video and you're done. That's not the case. Every video that I create in InVideo AI takes me just as long as it would if I was creating the content live, like with filming myself. For example, I'm still working on the video that's supposed to come out tomorrow, tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact. And it's a really great video. I'm really excited about it, but it's taking me days to create this video. I mean, in Video AI, when I first generated it, it came out, it was 5 minutes long. The video is now at 19 minutes. That was me creating the additional information and the script and all that stuff. Now I'm at the final stage of the video where I'm including photo content or photo images to go along with the entire video. And it's just so funny how, when you're creating these videos, you just try to find an image that matches what the script is saying. And it's funny how this creator, it's like they're talking about something from the past, but they're showing photos that are more modern and more, of the time of today than it would have been for when it was created. I just found that funny that he threw in a couple of clips in there that was just like, they're talking about nipped in, tucked in waist. And all of a sudden they're showing this girl in like, or a nipped in, tucked in waist from the 1950s, but they're showing like some girl in ripped jeans with a crop top and her belly out. Like those two things go together. Now, listen, if you guys were all here hanging out in my living room, which you are, these are the conversations that I'll be having. And so I just think that it's funny that when you create these, AI generated videos, there's a lot that goes behind it. And it looks like this creator spent a lot of time, but there was probably just a few scenes in there that he was just like, I cannot find an image that goes along with the text right here. So let me just put the image that I can find. And it's just so funny because the whole process of adding the images, I mean, I've been working on this video. I got it down to where I was just working on the photo section of it. And I still have like 3 or 4 more chapters to go. And it has taken me all day. I started working on that thing at like 11 o'clock in the morning and was still working on it up until this live. And after this live, we'll be still working on that video. And we'll probably spend all night finishing and perfecting that video. So, all right. I know that was a little long-winded story in there, but I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight on what it takes to create AI-generated videos. It's not as easy as people think. It's like, oh, you plug it in and the video is done. If you are a really caring creator, you spend the time to create the content and make it perfect, so that it doesn't look like it was just like slapped together and you threw it up there. Who's, like what sponsor is going to pay for that if it is a monetized video? You know what I mean? It's just not fair. You need to put in the time to create a good video. All right. I know that was long and drawn out, but I just wanted to say that real quick. It's like, like he has this little guy right here. He's talking about the 1950s, but all of a sudden this guy with the little question mark pops up.
A new silhouette for women. But would this be enough?
I'll rewind it back to where the girl's walking through the field with their belly out. Okay, that's a little too far back. Yeah, see right here, with the girl walking through with the belly out.
At a time when femininity was manifested through nipped.
They're talking about the 1945. And
in the post-war years, he set out to differentiate himself even more. At a time when femininity was manifested through nipped-in waists and prominent hips, Balenciaga unleashed his genius by by going in a different direction entirely. He wanted to set the body free. His designs became more streamlined and linear, and everything he created was in stark contrast to the popular, curvy, hourglass shape that Christian Dior promoted with his new look. He churned out statement piece after statement piece, and from the sack dress to the balloon jacket, with each creation, he got a lot of attention. With these innovative designs, Balenciaga achieved what is considered to be the most important contribution to the world of fashion: a new silhouette for women.
Yeah, these modern,
But would
like,
this
modern
be
runways.
enough?
It's like you find images where you can put them in
Throughout the next decade, Balenciaga enjoyed enormous
there. Go walk up
success.
this face mask.
Dubbed fashion's Picasso, he continued showing collections of unparalleled craftsmanship and beauty. But the revolutionary 60s also brought some deep changes. The hippie movement, rock and roll, the first sounds of pop music, and the increase of working women changed society's needs and habits. And with it, a new fashion design branch was born, the prêt-à-porter. The prêt-à-porter concept was completely opposed to haute couture. Tailored works of art were now getting replaced by ready-to-wear clothes in standardized sizes that were sold in big stores. And the personal relationship with the client inside the ateliers? Well, that was being replaced by an independent and impersonal buying mentality. As you can probably guess, these changes were not at all in line with Balenciaga's ideals. And whenever someone asked him for his thoughts on this new trend, he always answered, "I will never prostitute my talent." He opposed the changes so much that he preferred to retire from the fashion world entirely. And so that's what he did. In 1968, while at the peak of his success. During the announcement, he made it clear that the House of Balenciaga would remain closed forever. So then, how come so many people are still wearing Balenciaga today? Well, we'll get to that in a bit. Balenciaga had always been a private person, and after retiring, he continued living a quiet life. His retirement didn't last long, though, as he passed away in 1972, just 4 years after his big announcement. Numerous fashion gurus and celebrities attended his funeral, and the loss was felt throughout the fashion world. "We have nobody to replace him," Oscar de la Renta said. "He is the only designer I can think of who never did anything in bad taste." Cristobal's death marked the end of an era, and for the next decade, the Balenciaga house would be quiet. While the Balenciaga house reopened in 1986, it remained on the sidelines of fashion until 1997. That's when Nicolas Gassier took over. Today, Gassier is well known as the creative director of the House of Louis Vuitton. But back then, he was just a 25-year-old trying to put his name on the fashion map. And that's exactly what he did with his debut collection for Balenciaga. The modest, mostly black collection mimicked Cristobal's excellence in the construction of silhouettes, and Gassier restored the brand's glory as an original high-fashion house. Within a year of his debut, Gassier was reportedly contacted by Gucci, LVMH, and Prada, but he remained committed to Balenciaga. A couple of years later, Balenciaga was acquired by the multinational French Kering Group, and for a while, everything was going well. After nearly 2 decades, however, things began to change. Gassier started feeling alienated and unhappy with the Balenciaga business team, and he left for Louis Vuitton. Everything became an asset for the brand, trying to make it ever more corporate, he said. "I began to feel as though I was being sucked dry, like they wanted to steal my identity while trying to homogenize things. It just wasn't fulfilling anymore." After Gassier's sudden departure, Alexander Wang was ushered in as his replacement, but his stint only lasted 6 seasons. Then, in 2015, Balenciaga announced that they appointed Demna Gvasalia as the creative director, and that's when the brand truly got turned upside down. Demna was born in Sukhumi in Georgia in 1981, but he fled to Germany at the age of 12 due to the violent civil war in his country. The same thing that Cristóbal Balenciaga had done 5 decades earlier.
This is like
Demna
the
is sometimes called a fashion provocateur, as he uses fashion to comment
This is
on
so
politics and social
more
issues.
digestible than
He
a shorter
transports the
video.
Balenciaga archives from the 1950s and adapts them to the future. And his technical parkas, triple S sneakers, kimono-style robes, and puffer coats have all revolutionized the luxury market. The famous Speed Sock also attracted much attention when it was introduced in 2016. Influencers and fashionistas loved them. And while the look already existed before, the Balenciaga sock sneakers quickly achieved a cult-like following. Cardi B even went as far as mentioning them in one of her songs.
I like those Balenciagas, the ones that look like socks.
Then there were, of course, also the platform sole Crocs and leather IKEA bags, all at luxurious prices. Demna had transformed everyday items into luxurious goods, and while many people were outraged, Demna himself said that he did it to expose the cliches of fashion elitism. With these wacky designs, he not only positioned Balenciaga as a company that doesn't shy away from ridiculing big corporate fashion, but also as one of the cooler luxurious fashion brands on the planet. Today, Balenciaga remains as relevant as ever. Since the pandemic, Demna has been branching out in some unusual ways, and he has redefined what's possible in fashion design. As designers struggle to adjust to virtual fashion shows, Balenciaga seized this opportunity to plunge into the metaverse. Then, Balenciaga and Gucci, which are both owned by Kering, unveiled the first products of their Hacker project. And not much later, Demna directed 2 of Kanye West's Donda listening parties. And they partnered with Fortnite and allowed players to dress in Balenciaga looks. And at Paris Fashion Week, the brand served up a genuine surprise by debuting a 10-minute-long Balenciaga episode of The Simpsons. Up until recently, Demna was called the Grandmaster of Meme Fashion. And Balenciaga's Instagram page was as crazy and unconventional as can be. This unusual social media strategy was not an aimless one, though. 65% of sales came from millennials and Gen Zers, and Demna simply recognized that these tech-savvy customers want shoes, cats, randomness, and postmodern authenticity. This disregard for conventional luxury marketing worked its charm on the younger audience. But in July of 2021, Demna wiped the brand's social media accounts clean, stating, "I think social media is boring and dangerously addictive for some, as well as super manipulative. We need to find new ways of using it that are less harmful for society." While Demna and Cristóbal may at first seem worlds apart, they clearly have more in common than only escaping a war. Cristóbal revolutionized the history of fashion by shaking up the concepts of femininity, and he relentlessly pushed fashion beyond its edges, creating unconventional works of art that can't be classified. And whether you like Demna's creations or not, it's safe to say that not many would dare to call them conventional or easily classifiable. Do you think Cristóbal Balenciaga would be pleased with what happened to his legacy? Share your opinion in the comments. I'm curious to hear what you think. And if you like this video, then take a look at our channel where you'll find many more inspiring business videos.
Yes, and as always, you guys, I always say, make sure that you go and show
This Spanish refugee stepped down at
show these creators some love, as well as me. Hello, don't forget to show me some love, leave some comments, share this video, of course. Give it a like, thumbs up, all those good fun things. Yeah, so I just feel like we just got the same exact stuff in a way more digestible manner than the first creator. I don't feel that this creator, I'm sorry, that face mask is all in my nose. So I'm sorry. I know it looks like I'm digging in my nose, but I'm just trying to get that face mask out of there. It was caked up pretty good in there. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm also doing my steam. So, yeah, I feel like we got all the same information that the first creator gave us, but it was so much slower. And the other thing is, so annoyingly, I missed in both videos the actual moment in which he retires and leaves the house and all that. I still didn't get the full story, and I'm sure that this creator covered it a lot better than well, not a lot better, but in a more digestible manner than the first creator. So both times I missed that. So definitely watching the replay so I can learn what actually happened. So that mud mask is all off. I just went in with my micellar water, the simple micellar water. I actually have this shipped in from the States. That's how much I love it. This is, I buy them by the 2-pack and I'm on the second bottle. Usually by the time I get to the second bottle, I know I need to go ahead and place another order. For those of you, again, first time joining me, I am an American that recently moved to Belize. I'm currently living here in the capital city of Belmopan, Belize. I will be moving back to the States relatively soon, but in the meantime, I am living in Belize, and there are certain things that I have to have shipped in, and my micellar water is one of them. So we're doing a nice little steam. I got the skin all nice and clean. I didn't re-cleanse it. I just, because there are some benefits to some of that deep sea stuff, deep sea mask kind of staying on the skin because, it's just good for you. And the micellar water gets like the majority of it off, but there's still some remnants left on there. The steam is just going to open up the pores, bring all that good Dead Sea salt into the pores, getting them nice and cleaned out. All right, now we are on to the next video, which started, but I stopped it. My apologies. Going back to watch reader list. All right, so we're going to
Cristóbal Balenciaga,
the great master of fashion, which is, if you saw any
His
of my
father was a
social media,
fisherman and his mother a seamstress.
if you are here from any of my
One
social
of the
media
most
posts, I used this photo in that post. So if you recognize the thumbnail, that's why. All right, here we go. The great master of fashion history sessions. All right, let's go.
one of the most spoken names in recent years in fashion, Balenciaga became a brand. Who was the man who created all these innovative designs? I'm Estela Mendes. Welcome to Fashion History Sessions.
Okay, thanks, Estella.
Cristóbal Balenciaga was born in 1895 in Getaria, in the Basque Country in northern Spain.
I think we're basically going to get the same.
His father was a
information,
fisherman
guys,
and his mother a seamstress.
but just by
When
a
his
different
father
creator.
died, Cristóbal was still a child and saw his mother supporting the family with a small workshop. Commissions from the wealthy locals, including the Marquesa de Casa Torres, who would be pivotal for the development of his career.
All right. I'm not going to force you guys to re-listen to that story a third time. That would just be ridiculous. So we're going to go ahead and move on. I guess, there's just not, excuse me, there's just not a lot of story about this man. With him being so incredibly private, you really aren't getting a lot more information than you're getting from any other creator. There's just the information that's out there and that's it. There's no hidden secrets to his life, etc. So I think you get the gist of his life and of the man himself. What I will say is I believe that the scandal surrounding Demna came out around the holiday time of 2022. So depending upon when these creators created this content, they did not include the scandal because it was happened after the fact. What I will say is that it would be interesting to see if they would create their content the same, knowing what they know about what transpired around holiday time of 2023, I believe it was, or 2020. It's the end of 2022, the beginning of 2023. There. Interestingly, I was actually moving at that time. I had just moved to Belize right then and did not know anything about the scandal at all. It wasn't until after the fact that I found out what was going on. And again, it's all in my video, so please go and check that out. But we've still got some time. We've only an hour and 40 minutes in. Let's go ahead and start the video about the Cartiers. I thought that would just be interesting. Let's see, the Balenciaga, you didn't know. Okay, this says a year ago. Let's check it out. I don't really know if it starts to look like it's the same exact information. What is this? The disturbing history of Balenciaga? All right, we'll just go ahead and start these. But if they start to look like they're the same exact information, we're just gonna move on through. See if there's like an actual disturbing history. Like, sorry. Ah, okay. Sorry. Let's try this again. Are you with me, StreamYard? All right, here we blow.
This is Cristóbal Balenciaga, the true courtier who revolutionized the history of fashion, the sculptor-tailor, the fashion titan, the architect of haute couture, the one and only true courtier. These are only a few of the names that prominent members of the fashion industry, including Coco Chanel, Christian Dior, Hubert de Givenchy, and Emmanuel Ungaro, have used to describe Cristóbal Balenciaga, one of the biggest influences in haute couture. He not only challenged notions of femininity in the feminine silhouettes, but he also nudged fashion to its limits by designing works of art that defy categorization. He is commonly referred to as the king of couture, but originality is one aspect he always strived for. And like most fashion brands, Cristóbal has had its fair share of ups and downs. At some point, he had to accept that the dream was over. Through strife and struggle, he was able to make a name in the fashion industry. But how did this introvert who valued his faith over pleasing the media become such a significant 20th century fashion influencer? Stay tuned to find out.
Okay, I think it's almost like the same creator. Did I miss something?
On January 21st, 1895, Cristóbal was born in the modest Spanish fishing town of Gutiérrez in the Basque country. Not too long, he became exposed to fashion.
Okay, let's just move on. I just don't think that there's going to be any earth-shattering information out there that these other creators haven't already covered. So let's just go ahead and move on to, I thought I moved that thing up about the Cartiers. I thought I moved it up so we wouldn't have to scroll for it.
Did you know the story behind this luxury?
So yeah, Cartier, I thought this would be really fun. It just popped up, you know, now that I'm doing all these fashion movie nights, certain things just sort of pop up for me when it comes to like the history of luxury brands. And luxury designers. They just sort of have been coming up in my feed, in my recommended list. So I thought this one would be really, really interesting. And since it's not a terribly long video, what it's like 13 minutes, since it wasn't a terribly long video, I figured it would be like the addition to like a little bonus to a movie night that wasn't a long movie night. And so here we are. I actually put another one in there, which was, about Fabergé. If you know anything about Fabergé and the Fabergé eggs and all that, I thought I had put it on my watch list, but for some reason when I was looking through, I didn't see it. If we have time and I can find it, maybe we'll go ahead and add that as well. But I thought that would be a really fun one to also learn about Fabergé. I actually know a little bit about Fabergé. I also know a little bit about the Cartiers, but you know, these creators probably did a lot of research to learn more about these particular luxury houses, way more so than I would take the time to research myself. So let's watch what other creators created. Okay, so here we go. The Cartiers, a family, a brand, a legacy of luxury.
We all know Cartier. It's a name in conjunction with shining jewels, unique watches, and the kind of elegance that screams old money. But did you know the story behind this luxury brand isn't all happy endings and fairy tales?
Okay.
Sure, Cartier can boast of a rich heritage of innovative design and master craftsmanship. I mean, it's a success story built on the vision of a family who transformed a small Parisian workshop into a global empire. But there's also an eerie backstory beneath the glamorous surface.
Ooh.
A chapter involving the Cartier name eventually leaving the hands of its bloodline. So, how did a humble jeweler become the playground of the elite? Who were the Cartiers, and what caused the family to lose control of their legacy? Get ready, because we're about to go into the interesting details and sometimes surprising history of Cartier.
I'm ready.
Are you ready to uncover the truth behind the luxury brand?
Yes, I am. Let's do
begin.
it. Let's begin, okay.
Before moving on, we'd like to take a moment to appreciate Sky is the Limit for sponsoring this video. Their support enables us to continue creating content and bringing valuable information to our viewers.
Don't forget, share the love to these creators, please. They're giving us good stuff for free here, people. They did the work, so we didn't have to.
Louis-François Cartier, the founder of Cartier, as a young man, apprenticed under the watchful eye of Adolphe Picard, a master watchmaker. For years, Louis worked on his craft in Picard's modest Rue Montorgueil shop, and by 1847, at the age of 28, Louis took a bold step. He purchased the shop, determined to carve his own path. Driven by ambition, Louis envisioned a future beyond watches. He expanded his business to include jewelry, carefully selecting each piece with a clear eye. However, unforeseen circumstances occurred as sudden political unrest in France created an unexpected opportunity for Louis to grow his business forward at an unprecedented pace. This period of unrest gave Alfred Cartier, son of Louis-François, a brilliant idea. Unlike his father, who had carefully built the Cartier name within Paris, Alfred dreamt of taking the brand beyond the Parisian streets and into the world of high society. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. The year 1870 brought chaos to Paris. Paris was in turmoil due to a big socialist uprising called the Paris Commune. This scared a lot of rich people who were potential customers of Cartier. Banks shut down and escape became the only option. But fleeing meant leaving valuables behind, which included their prized jewelry.
Okay, sorry. Just had to say, another creator doing AI content really, really well. Very pleased with it. He's doing a great job with this. I mean, wow. So far, 3 minutes in, I'm intrigued. Great job. Great job to this creator. Make sure you give them some love.
It became the only option. But fleeing meant leaving valuables behind, which included their prized jewelry. This was all it took for Alfred to take action. With a business mind as sharp as his eyes, he saw his chance and took it. At that instant, he was more than a jeweler. He became a solution. He offered these desperate aristocrats a way out, convert their large jewels into cash they could easily carry. In return, he acquired a huge collection of gems at a fraction of their true worth. Though the Paris Commune was a hit in history, it became a turning point for Cartier. By 1871, the uprising was crushed, and France transitioned into a republic, a breeding ground for commerce. Now, with a store full of expensive jewels and a newly opened market, Alfred could finally achieve his vision. Cartier was no longer a simple workshop. It had now become a big jewelry store.
Wow. Really happy with the creators.
Over the next 2 decades, Cartier established itself as the preferred jeweler for the European elite. However, with success came the need for expansion. Paris was booming at the turn of the 20th century, and competition was fierce. With the leadership of Cartier handed from Louis to his son, Alfred, the Cartier's brand was moved to a greater height. Even though Cartier had moved to a new location, Alfred still believed it could become a global leader. So, he sent his 3 sons, Louis, Pierre, and Jacques, to make it happen. Pierre took on New York, where he did amazing things for the Cartier brand. Jacques, the youngest, made Cartier famous in London. And Louis stayed in Paris, where he established Cartier's presence and reputation. In hindsight, Louis's gamble paid off. All 3 brothers brought in something new. Louis, the woke one, could predict what people would crave next. Pierre, with his sharp eye for potential, saw New York as a future Cartier destination. Jacques, the connector, broadened their clientele, ensuring their creations reached the right people. Through it all, the brothers remained close. Louis, however, was extremely creative. He made some of Cartier's most famous pieces, like the mystery clocks where the hands were seen floating on an invisible mechanism. He made timekeeping so much better by turning wristwatches into a classy accessory, a must-have for a gentleman or woman. His vision extended beyond his vicinity, drawing inspiration from all corners of the world to influence his brilliant Art Deco creations with a touch of a classy vibe. A true innovator, Louis made the Paris store the envy of jewelers worldwide. Undoubtedly, Louis was the driving force. His relentless pursuit of perfection is immeasurable. While strict quality control existed elsewhere, Louis's obsession with flawlessness truly set Cartier apart. Louis's unwavering commitment to excellence wasn't just admirable, it fueled a period of creativity for Cartier. The next 4 decades saw Cartier produce some of the world's most unique pieces. The now iconic Tutti Frutti necklaces and bracelets were just a glimpse of their ability. Platinum, silver, and gold formed the platform for their goods. But Louis envisioned more. He declared the need for an inventory that responds to the public's mood, urging the creation of functional yet beautifully crafted items. Thus, Cartier offered bejeweled cigarette cases, monogrammed tin openers, even gold yo-yos and toothpicks, and they were all made with the Cartier style. Hold on, before we go further into Cartier's story, let's talk about you. Do you consider yourself someone who loves expressing themselves through the sneakers you wear? If so, then keep this in mind. There's a whole world of fashion waiting to be explored in Sky is the Limit online store. Maybe you'll find your own signature style, something as iconic as a piece of Cartier
Very
jewelry.
clever.
To get to this store, you will find a straight link to the store in the description. And if you have done that, let's move on with our story. The Cartier brothers weren't just masters of craftsmanship. They were also visionaries who understood the power of innovative design. They were able to push their vision further with the Trinity ring. In 1924, the Trinity ring was produced. Its simple yet captivating design features 3 bands of gold, gray, yellow, and pink, representing fidelity, friendship, and love. Despite beautifying fingers for nearly a century, the Trinity ring remains a rare beauty of Cartier's legacy.
Stunning.
This piece was a different feel from the usual colors that dominated the Art Deco era. It was carefully designed by Louis Cartier himself, with the help of artist Jean Cocteau. This innovation has traveled through the years, making the Trinity ring a piece worshipped by celebrities like its original inspiration, Jean Cocteau, alongside Princess Diana and Nicole Kidman. Following World War II, Cartier's global expansion continued, but the journey wasn't without its challenges. Pierre Cartier found himself in charge and alone. Sadly, his brothers Louis and Jacques had passed away at the young ages of 67 and 58, respectively, in 1942. The question then was, could Pierre continue the extraordinary Cartier legacy? Well, he not only continued it, but thrived. In fact, one of Cartier's most recognizable pieces can trace its roots back to the early days of this period. The story of the Panther and Cartier goes back to 1914. The Panther really became a signature for Cartier thanks to a woman named Jeanne Toussaint. She was basically the creative genius behind their jewelry, and everyone who knows Cartier's history knows her name. She worked with a guy named Louis Cartier and designed jewelry that was both elegant and totally unique. They even called her the Panther because she loved panthers so much.
Wow.
Her apartment was even decorated with panther skins. Jean's influence turned the panther into a symbol of Cartier. They started using panthers in their ads everywhere, from leopards peering through windows to panther prints on bracelets and necklaces. It wasn't just a watch anymore. The panther was on everything. Sadly, after 2 decades of leading the company solo following his brother's passing, Pierre Cartier passed away in 1964. With his death, a chapter closed, leaving many to wonder who would take the Cartier legacy forward.
This is so
Following Pierre
fascinating.
Cartier's passing, the Cartier heirs made a surprising decision. They decided to sell each Cartier branch separately. This meant the London and New York stores.
Sorry, I just wanted to pause that. 1914, the Panther? I didn't know it was dated back that long. That's amazing. Just doing my LED mask. Probably won't have enough time to do it fully with you guys because it's 30 minutes on the light blue setting, which is cell rejuvenation, right? Sorry, it is for accelerating active tissue metabolism. 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 Oh my goodness. Okay, sorry. Going back a second. Again, this creator's doing a really good job. My only one downside is I wish he had turned the music down just a touch so that I could hear his voice a little bit more. Other than that, great job.
Following Pierre Cartier's passing, the Cartier heirs made a surprising decision. They decided to sell each Cartier branch separately. This meant the London and New York stores were no longer part of the main group, leaving the original Cartier with just 4 locations: Hong Kong, Geneva, Munich, and Paris.
Wow.
Despite this division, the Cartier brand remained known for jewelry and watches, but was no longer under family control. In 1972 came Robert Hawke, a French World War II hero, who envisioned a reunited Cartier empire. He embarked on an ambitious mission, reacquiring the various Cartier branches. While the company wouldn't be led by the Cartier family again, Hawke's efforts resulted in a unified entity, Cartier Monde. He became its chairman. Hawke's brilliance extended beyond reunification. In 1973, he spearheaded the launch of Mousse de Cartier, a line of accessible products. This genius democratized the Cartier brand, making its luxury attainable for a wider audience. Secretaries, not just the high and mighty, could now beautify themselves with Cartier. Tragically, Hawke couldn't witness the expansion caused by Mousse de Cartier. A car accident near his Paris office claimed his life at the young age of 60. His daughter, Nathalie Hawke, then took over as Cartier's president.
Okay, wait a second. Hold on. Okay. Once again, this creator used a very recent piece of video in his content. And let me just say, the car crash that this creator used in this video, I actually saw it because I'm really obsessed with ridiculous things like that, like the true crime stuff on YouTube. So I actually saw what actually happened in that car crash. and it was a drunk driver who fell asleep at the wheel of this car and completely wiped out another car, hit a building, and as the building toppled over, there was a pedestrian on the sidewalk that unfortunately didn't make it. It was horrific. And if I could find the link to that video, I mean, I watched it so long ago, I don't know that I could find it. I'll try to find it and link it in this video, but I don't know that I can, because if you ever watch any of those like body cam footage videos on YouTube, sometimes they're like 2 hours long and it was like one small little segment within a video. But I remember that car crash very specifically because of what happened, that the building actually toppled over onto the cars, onto the street. It was crazy. All right. Sorry, I just was like, wait a minute, we're talking about something that happened way back when, and we're watching this body cam footage that I just recently saw, like maybe a few months ago. But this, yeah, check out the, so hopefully you can see it. Check it out.
Tragically, Hawk couldn't witness the expansion caused by Must Cartier. A car accident
This
near his
right
Paris
here.
office claimed his life at the young age of
Look at how
60.
it hits
His
this
daughter,
car and
Natalie Hawk,
topples the
then took
building
over as Cartier's president.
onto the cars. Crazy.
Cartier's reputation rests on three pillars: unique design, exceptional jewelry, and beautiful craftsmanship. From its humble beginnings in 1847, Louis-François Cartier's grandsons built the company to international recognition. Today, Cartier has a multinational presence with nearly 300 boutiques around the globe. The brand became part of the Richemont Group in 1988, effortlessly growing into a big jewelry company. Many Cartier pieces have gone beyond normal jewelry to become collector's items. Take, for instance, the iconic Art Deco Tutti Frutti creations. A 1930s masterpiece from this line fetched $1.3 million at a 2020 auction. For over 175 years, Cartier has achieved what few brands dream of: a consistent association with luxury and elegance. While the Cartier family's direct control ended, the Richemont Group still upholds the original spirit. Never imitate, always innovate. This motto continues to guide Cartier's journey as a leader in the world of luxury goods. This period in Cartier's history is a masterclass in navigating the issues of business. Just like any modern entrepreneur, Louis faced challenges, from establishing himself to standing out from the crowd. The key to success, as they say, is identifying the problem. Once you know what you're up against, you can craft a plan to overcome it. Sometimes, the solution might be a dramatic shift, like targeting a new clientele entirely. Other times, it might be something simpler, like creating a luxurious shopping experience or offering a wider range of products. The truth is, in the game of business, the longer you play, the more opportunities you create. And sometimes, all it takes is a well-timed visit from a high society client to propel you straight to the top. Do you think Cartier has managed to maintain its founder's vision of elegance and quality over the years?
Yeah.
Or maybe Cartier has struck a balance between honoring its heritage and embracing contemporary trends?
Yes.
Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed learning about Cartier's fascinating history, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more, and don't forget to share. There are countless captivating stories waiting to be explored, and remember, there's no limit to the power of human creativity. Sky is the limit.
This creator did a great job. Thank you for watching. All right. Great job. He did a really good job with that one. Now, I am not going to drag out this movie night just because I still have a ton more skincare stuff to do. Oh. I know this guy does these videos on air fryers that I'm dying to watch. We could watch Nicolas Gasquet, but I think I wanted to save that for a Louis Vuitton night. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, you guys. I can't find the one about Fabergé. I would have thrown that in there had I still had it in my watch list, but I don't. I hate to end this video with me in my face mask. That just seems weird to end a video that way. But I am still taking off the polish on my nails and going. I still have another 23 minutes left on this face mask. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I learned so much tonight. I think that doing these little fashion history nights really gets you understanding what it is that what it is that these fashion houses, how they started, how the founder, what their original mission was, what their original vision for their brand was, their original vision for their house, that kind of thing. I think that's really important to know if you are someone that participates in fashion. You know what I mean? If you're someone that actually goes out and buys clothes, whether it be luxury or not, just kind of understanding the history of these brands and the people behind them, and how it all began, is really not only fascinating but necessary to know. Again, because of the current designer at Balenciaga, it's not a brand that I am currently supporting. However, I am really glad that I was able to learn the little bit that is out there about the man behind the brand. I wish there were more. You know what I mean? I feel like we really didn't need to watch both of those videos. I think if we had just watched the second video without watching the first one, we would have gotten just as much information. But, I do try to do as much research, find as much information as possible in order to bring you guys a good fashion movie night. I certainly enjoyed it. I didn't get done everything that I wanted to get done, but I did do a face mask. I did finally get all the polish off my nails. I can actually go in and just start with my electric file. I've been charging it throughout our movie night. And yeah, I just got me a second glass of the grape juice, and I'm just going to finish up the rest of my skincare for tonight. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Next week, again, as I said, it's going to be a really exciting one. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. I do fashion movie nights every Saturday, 7:30 my time, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, like I said, next week, the video is the person that we are covering. There is an actual reason that we are covering it at the time that we are covering it. So please make sure to join me. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. And until next time, everybody, stay fashionable and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye. I know I still haven't gotten the StreamYard premium. But I'm going to. I promise I will. I promise I'm going to get it. I've just been so busy with content and everything else. I just haven't had time to do it. But hopefully I will get it done, especially for our next Thursday yoga session, our Thursday morning yoga, 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. Please make sure to join me live for that. And I'll see you guys then. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.